Really?
He's already got it, right? It's $85. So that's it.
Really?
He's already got it, right? It's $85. So that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening. It's 6 o'clock, November 21st. This is the Beach Advisory Committee. This is our November meeting. We don't meet every month, but we met last month and we're meeting this month. Board members, would you like to introduce yourself? Starting Carol Sherman at the far end.
Carol Sherman.
John Dykstra.
Pam Sikansky.
I'm Paul Hogan again.
Barry Engel.
Fred Stafford.
And we may have Paul Hayes joining by Zoom. He's in Boston.
But we have a quorum as is.
We have a quorum. So first item is approval of the minutes, which Carol was good enough to copy and bring. Any questions or comments?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Fred. All in favor?
Aye.
That's everybody? Thank you very much. Public comments from anyone in the audience that's not on the agenda? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We have 10 attendees on Zoom.
Okay. Any hands or anything there?
No hands raised yet.
Okay.
What, it's hand in the audience.
Kate Bauerberg.
Kate, can you go to the microphone if you're going to talk? You should know the drill.
I know I should. I just figured I'd talk loudly. Anyway, Kate Bauerberg. I just was wondering, and looking at the agenda, whether we were going to be talking about the issue that I think you had brought up before the BOS about the stop sign.
I was just going to mention, we can mention it right now, and that is that it's on the Board of Selectmen agenda. She sent a note to John and I just telling us it was going to be on the agenda for next meeting?
I believe it's going to be next meeting.
Yeah,
but don't-
so
Next meeting is whenever.
the Board of Selectmen is...
It's not, it's the December 8th, I believe.
Okay, all right. I do
Yeah, so-
have one thought or suggestion to make, so I guess I have to wait till then to do
Yeah,
that.
if anybody has, there's a proposal or request from someone in the neighborhood to put a stop sign, I'm not sure where, at the intersection of Community
Yeah,
House Road and Community House Lane.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
So
That's-
if anyone's...
The where is my point, but I will discuss it. I guess we go directly to the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen
it's not
instead of
our-
having brought it here first.
Right,
Thanks.
thank you. On to committee reports. Who wants to start?
I'm happy to.
Barry,
I'll be
go ahead.
brief. So just two quick comments. One was a follow-up to the last meeting we had with regard to the striping, which we had recommended and the Board of Selectmen had approved last year. I did hear from Chris Simeone following subsequent to our last meeting, and he's trying to get it done this fall. He's just waiting until they have a critical mass to bring the truck down to the west end of Kings Highway. I'm hopeful. At this point, we've been put off. It was supposed to be in the spring, then it was supposed to be in June, then it was supposed to be in the fall. But I'm trusting that we'll get it done shortly. And the key, of course, is to get it done for next summer.
Right.
That's kind of our hard stop, but I'm not going to wait until June to get after him.
Right, for sure.
So that was the first thing. The second follow-up was someone, and I apologize, I can't remember who, but someone had an excellent idea to take the data that we had reported from Chief Sanford in terms of the traffic and turn it into a communication. And I'm looking at Fred to take that information and disseminate it. And I really do agree that it's one thing to have the data, but if people don't understand what it means and just always are thinking that everybody's speeding, when in fact the facts say they're not, I think that'll be really, really helpful.
I think the problem there is you notice it when somebody does speed.
That's
You
right.
know,
Right, the
people
one
that are- yeah,
outlier is the
right.
one that you notice, everybody else
Yeah,
agreed. But I do think some proper communication would be really helpful.
and how do you want to,
I would say we could do it with,
is it the newsletter?
just with the newsletter, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that goes to a pretty broad,
When does the next one go out?
whenever we want it to.
Oh, okay, all right,
No pressure.
all right, I'll put that together then.
We could do it, depending upon the other topic, which we probably need to communicate on, is kayaks. So the timing of
Yeah,
that
two of
could, we could save the traffic study till,
Yeah, there's no.
Midwinter or
rush to it.
something.
Just let's not forget it when
Right.
we do want to put it out.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Natural resources, we have a couple of things quickly. John has a little PowerPoint
Yeah.
on water quality. This is usually this time of year we take a look at the water quality results from the summer, and John is involved both as a Board of Selectmen and as a member of this committee and as a volunteer helping on that.
Yeah, I was hoping to have some more conclusive results in terms of analysis of last year. Those are still ongoing, not because they're issues, but because there's just bandwidth That's the only issue. But what I did do was to put together some slides that would act as a little bit of background and some of the conclusions that we have drawn in the past that this year's data certainly also supports in terms of suggestions of when may I say, things to avoid, perhaps, from a health concern when swimming at the beach. So, having said that, let's just hop in. Just as a reminder to us all, the next slide, please. We have 3 watersheds that combine to create Goose Rocks Beach. I'm still waiting for the next slide, guys. There we go. So the beach is fed by 3 large watersheds. Oh, they're not so large, but they're large compared to the beach. And you get a sense of the 3 of them there. The orange is the Little River watershed. Smith Brook is in the magenta. The yellow-green is Batson's Brook area. It also has Turbott's Creek, not Turbott's, Tyler Brook that comes into comprises the watershed for the Batson River. All of these feed, both the Smith and the Batson feed out of Batson Brook on the west end of the beach. That's our sampling we know as GR5. You guys, we've been sampling that since 2004 for water quality. And the Little River, which you see a large portion is in Biddeford. In fact, the largest portion of the Little River drains Biddeford. And then a bit of Beaver Pond comes through and combines with the Little River to come out at the mouth at the east end of the beach. Next slide, please. Just to acquaint ourselves with the geography of the area, all of these rivers drain through extensive tidal marshes. The tidal marsh is seen here in the kind of the tan color, the green obviously the vegetation. And those marshes are somewhat problematic to the fecal indicator bacteria that we're using, that EPA suggests we use to measure the quality of the water. We know from scientific literature that the enterococci will multiply in sand and weeds and seaweed within a marsh area. Plus the marsh has a lot of birds, mammals that frequent the marsh and add fecal matter into the marsh water. You'll notice one of the other unique parts of our beach are the 2 arcs, the 2 principal arcs that form Goose Rocks. And you can see how we are bounded by solid rock on both the east and the west. And what that does, the consequence of that is the sand never really leaves our beach. It just moves back and forth from year to year. One sandbar will get larger and the other smaller. The sand will move up, sand will move back in response to storms, and then the normal shoreward migration of the waves. But it's what gives us our unique sand. The beautiful sand of Goose Rocks is that it's been milled and ground to death. All started as glacial till, but it's really never left the beach area, which is kind of fun. All right, the next slide, please. These are the 4 sites that we sample as part of the Healthy Beach program. GR1 is up at the top on the west side, on the eastmost side. That's the Little River. GR2 is kind of in the middle of that eastern arc. GR4 is in the western arc, and GR5 is at the mouth of the Batson. And what you don't see clearly here is that the islands, the West Fair Rocks, which is the island chain to the right as you're looking out to sea, channels that Batson Brook water. So very little of it comes in onto the beach. The majority of it flows out into Skipper Joe's Harbor, which is kind of interesting. Whereas the Little River, that drains out into the east arc there, and some of that may eventually get over to the western arc. What you'll see in the data, whenever we're looking at it, is that GR4 in the western arc always has the lowest values. And that's, again, to be expected, where the Batson River doesn't really feed much into that west arc. It goes out to sea for the most part, and it's the little river, so you have the least at GR4, which is that western arc, a little bit higher at GR2, and the highest values we find in terms of concentration of the fecal indicator bacteria are at the two river mouths. The next slide, please. So we collect these data. The left-hand side of the spreadsheet of the database are the actual values we collect in terms of the enterococci concentration, the salinity, temperature. And then based on the time of collection, we can calculate a tide and a wind direction, and we then can use the NOAA databases to get the amount of rainfall that occurred 48 hours before we sampled. So all that data is what we have on the right. And then if we look at that data, try to look at an analysis of it, let's go to the next slide. These are some of the things we see. And this data has been presented before in a different form, but I think it's important to look at it again. And what we're looking at here are 4 graphs, and it is the collection of all the data since 2004 through 2022. The upper left is GR1, that's the mouth of the Little River. So the upper right is the East Beach area, that's GR2, that's the area where the homes are not right on the beach, the main part of the beach where most of the visitors come. The GR4 is on the lower left, that's the West Arc, and GR5 is on the lower right. So we'll be looking at these 2 times. The next slide will have them as well in that same order. And what you see on the horizontal axis in the blue arrow is showing the low tide is on the right and the high tide is on the left. I'm sorry, vice versa. Low tide on the left, high tide on the right. So you're moving from low tide to high tide as you look from the left to the right on each graph. And the vertical axis is showing the concentration of the FIB bacteria, measured at those different points in the tide cycle. So you can see that at the low tide, the concentration, the chance of getting exposed to bacteria is higher at low tide than it is at the high tide, which is on the right-hand side of the graph. And that's markedly true for the 2 river mouths, which are upper left and lower right. And you can see that it's much less so when you're in the main part of the beach. And do remember, this is fecal indicator bacteria. It doesn't necessarily mean the water is dangerous. It only means that this indicator, which may associate with human pathogen, is either high or low. There's either high concentration or less. If we go to the next slide, this is showing the effect of rainfall. So now the horizontal axis is dry when there wasn't much rain at all the way up to heavy rainfall on the right. And you can see what happens to all the graphs. When we have more than about 3/4 of an inch of rain, the concentration of the fecal indicator bacteria rises significantly. And this is most probably because of the runoff down the watershed and coming out through the marsh and into the ocean. So these are the 2 points that we always make. We've created signs at Goose Rocks that suggest that people avoid swimming and wading in the tidal rivers at low tide. And if there are heavy rain events, we post signs on the indicator boards for the water quality boards mentioning heavy rainfall, and it's best to avoid swimming and wading in the beach. So those are kind of the results, yeah.
Is that the entire period of testing?
Yes, it is.
Through 2022?
Yes, it is. Yeah, 2022 was no different in terms of its correlation to both the height of the tide stage, and the amount of rainfall.
Did you do these slides?
Yeah,
They're great.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So this is a little bit of the DNA study. We have expanded our work away from the beach, extending back into the marsh, and now up into the fresh water. Those magenta circles you see on the, as you move away from the beach, the furthest away from the beach, are new for 22. And these are sampling each of the Tyler River, the Batson River, Smith Brook, and Beaver Pond, and the Little River, up in the freshwater portion of the data, of the topography. And the reason we're doing this is we want to try to understand how much of the FIB, the fecal indicator bacteria, is washing into the marsh, and how much of it is compounded and growing in the marsh, adding to the measurements that we see at the river mouths. And that work is still ongoing, and we're actually going to need a couple more years of data. One of the challenges is that these data are expensive to analyze, and you need a number of years before you can really see any meaningful trends. Next slide, please. So these are the DNA results that we receive when we do the analyses. On the right, you'll see there's a mammal column. In the pink is a human DNA column and a bird DNA. And then there's also markers for gulls and for dogs, for canine. In 1921, we had no human hits at all at any of the measurements.
2021.
2021. Did I say 2021? I'm showing my age.
In a long time.
Right on. This year, we did have some trace amounts detected in the late part of the summer. They were very low values. We're still trying to understand what significance, if any, they might have. We'll continue to look at the areas, but there was nothing discovered anywhere near the levels that we saw in 19 and 20 when we were able to associate those with septic issues up into the watershed. Next slide, please. So for our future work, for next year and the years ahead, we'll be continuing with Maine Healthy Beaches, looking at the FIB. We'll do that along the beachfront at GRs 1, 2, 4, and 5. And then we'll also be working further in the salt marsh and up in the freshwater part of the watershed. And here we're doing both FIB and the DNA. The Bacteroides is the little critter that is used to trace the human DNA. And I mentioned there in the paragraph that one of the reasons we're working in the freshwater is so that we can collect the foundation data that we need in order to apply to the state for what's called a 401B grant, where we can look at watershed management and perhaps improve the situation in our upper part of the watershed. Although right now, again, there's no real critical issues. It's just monitoring the amount of enterococci that's washing into the marsh. So that's it.
So I guess my question would be, we had no rainfall this summer, so we had very good test results.
Could we bring up that PowerPoint one more time? I anticipated Paul's question. So what I did this the half hour before I came, so this is definitely preliminary. And I'm sorry, I was hoping I should have made them larger. But if you squint and look carefully, what you have are from the years 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 at GR1 and GR5. And at each year, the first row are the count for each year at each of those locations. The second row are the number of exceedances, the number of times in that count that it was equal or above 104 colonies per 100 milliliters.
That's the second line, I'm sorry.
The
So
bottom
it's 9,
line-
6, 10, 16, 10.
Yeah, the bottom line is the percent.
Right.
So when you're, I don't have that. So when you're looking at it, let's go over to 22. In 22 at GR1, 38 samples, 10% above, 26% exceedance. In 21, we had 40 samples, very similar number, but there were 14 above, which was a 35%. So that supports the initial observation that we had a drier year. We know that with less rainfall, we have less high enteral values, and therefore we had low values. What's a little more curious is when you look back through the rest of the years, because it bounces around all over the place. GR1 had 38 and actually had a lower percentage, but only by 3 percentage points on GR5. So GR1 had quite a marked drop, but GR5 still had 35% in the exceedance column. Now GR5 drains a much larger area, more complex drainage basin. It's a bigger marsh, so that might help equilibrate the values.
And how many days did we do the DNA testing this year?
I'd have to check, I think 5, but I'm not clear. 5 is what I remember, but 5, 6, no more. Again, this is not DNA, this is all entero.
Oh, I'm sorry. This sheet, yeah, this one.
This is all enterococcus.
I have a question about the grant that you referenced. Would that be to
Yes.
do further study, or is that for some kind of amelioration?
It's a watershed management grant, so it would be for mitigation where problems are found.
Okay.
So that's the idea is to have an understanding of what is flowing into the system, where you're taking your samples, how often you're taking your samples. So it's a monitoring and a mitigation type plan, yeah. So
And
it's
if I remember from that meeting last fall, we needed the data, we needed additional data so that we would qualify for the grant because we didn't have the upstream
Yeah,
data because
that's
it had
what
never
was
been done.
Exactly.
And then the first level of grant, if you're eligible, is to do more research and to propose a plan.
Help write the grant, actually.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And then if there is a problem and there is a realistic solution, then you apply for a grant to do that. too.
Okay.
So it could be, who knows? Because we,
Yeah.
you know. I guess my question is, why not, we've used the state's resources to do this. We've used, other than personnel and whatever, we've not really gone out of pocket at the town level
Actually, we
for
have.
the DNA.
Yeah, we have, actually. Some of that has been done through our budget, for the DNA analyses.
Oh, okay. I'm unaware of that.
Yeah.
No one ever came and asked for a recommendation on that?
I think that's always been that's been part of it for a while. I may be wrong on that, but I do believe that's true.
Okay, well, if that's happening, that's great. I think we have, the beach fund is to, among other purposes, is to protect the natural resource, and if this, this certainly fits within that bucket. And no one's ever come to the committee that I know of, when I was on it, to ask for,
But again, that bucket is there for us to be able to propose to the town.
Of course.
Things, but
Right.
the town it's all town money. So the town's been doing that even though there may not have been a direct request for it.
okay, well, I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, John, that's great. Very.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very, can we put that up on our, that little PowerPoint?
Sure. I hope it
Because
would.
people ask, like, all the time I get questions, and I'm sort of always like, well, go look at this, or,
Yes.
so it would be helpful to have that on
Sure.
our
And
page.
But I think one thing that is important to state is that the fact that the enterococci, the fecal indicator bacteria, are high does not necessarily mean the water is unsafe to swim in. It means that there is a possibility that it could be associated with human DNA, which then would make the water unsafe to swim in. And our analyses of human DNA had consistently shown that we don't have an issue with human DNA. So it's, I should say this is me speaking. I mean, the town clearly, when it's 104, we post that it's 104, because that's what the EPA states we should do. But the reason the EPA is doing that is that, again, it in itself is not unhealthy. It's that it might associate with something that is unhealthy, and therefore that's the measure at which you need to be careful. That's the warning EPA puts out. And what we're doing is looking at what that something that would be unhealthy is, i.e. human bacteria. And we're seeing very little, if any, of that in our waters. So I feel personally comfortable with swimming at the beach. And if one was less comfortable, then certainly avoiding the tidal rivers at low tide and avoiding swimming after heavy rainfall, more than even a half an inch to be totally safe, these waters are safe, in my opinion.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Sally, you're welcome.
Nice job, John.
The other item, actually, there's two items. One I neglected to put on. We have a request to the town, which would come from our fund. We would need to make a recommendation to the town to spend, as we have done in past years, $3,000 to support the state's profiling of the beach, which is it's been going on for how many years, Carol? It's to have a baseline and to know what's happening at the beach. It shows us that our beach is very stable. It's done by volunteers, people who, I guess, all of them live at the beach, as far as I know. And Carol, you know who they are, so we can thank them?
I do not. Linda Hanna,
Linda
Bob, and Ginny
and Ginny.
Almeida.
Who else does it?
Those are the ones I see down by my place. I don't know the others.
Okay,
We got to know we may be missing folks, and
Yes.
it's a wonderful crew that does that.
thank you. Yeah, and they do it all year round, even in the awful time of the winter. So anyway, the request is from the state. So each town that participates support the overhead for the program, the statewide program.
So do you need a motion for that?
So we need a motion for $3,000 to support it for another year.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion, questions? All in favor? That's everybody. Thank you very much. And the other is, as you know, and I don't remember whether we took a vote on this, and I looked in the minutes.
Don't think we did. I didn't see it in the minutes.
So we also would like to recommend spending $150 for the fee for the software that has enabled John to do the drone flying for the dunes portion of the beach, which we're supposed to do again Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning.
What's the wind look like, John?
It looks
Better than today, I hope.
better than today.
John was paying for this out of his own pocket, and but it's cheaper to buy the license for the year. So I need a motion on that.
So move.
Pam again. Do we have a second?
I second.
Barry, second. All in favor?
I probably should abstain, seeing as how
Yes.
it's not coming out of my pocket anymore.
Okay, so I will let Lori know on those two items. Okay, great, thanks. Communications, Fred?
Sure. Well, Paul and I met with Lori Smith a couple weeks back, and she was very supportive of what we're trying to do in terms of minimizing the amount of signage we have around the beach, consolidating as much of it as we can into one sign. And I said she was very understanding and supportive of what we want to do. One thing she did mention was she had been somewhere, I think, out west and had seen a lot of icons used. And so we're going to explore that. And icons are great, but it has to tell an extremely simple story, like no swimming, no smoking, no drinking, whatever. So the next step is to make some revisions to what we have, let everybody take a look at it, and then get together with the woman who's the designer for the town and see what we can actually put together. And then by that time, we'd have a rendering that we could, a rough mock-up that we could show to Lori and the Board of Selectmen.
Great,
That's about it.
thank you. Anything else from the committees? Okay, back on to old business. We discussed at the last meeting the kayak storage issue on the beach, and we formed a little subcommittee which met once.
All there.
Yeah.
And John sent around, who sent around the minutes? Was it you, John?
Yeah.
Okay, so John did send to the committee, and John will make a quick presentation about what the committee discussed.
Great. Yeah, so what we've discussed is we're proposing that.
Let me just give the background.
Go ahead.
I should have given the background. And the background is that the kayak racks were put out onto the beach in the busiest area of the beach 5 years ago, something like that. And the reason they were put out was people were dragging kayaks up into the grasses and the dunes, which is not very good to build and keep our dunes, which are essential for our neighborhoods. So the kayak racks were put out on the trust property with permission of the trust. The trust owns 6 or 7 lots in that area as a signer of the beach agreement, and it's become very popular. And we have, John will give the number from anecdotal observations this summer, but it's taking up a fair amount of real estate on the beach. And anyway, came back to us to see what we should do, can do. Do we want this to grow? Do we want this to be reduced?
Right.
Subcommittee met, and thank you.
Thank you. And the other concern, as our storms are getting stronger and more frequent, if we have a summer storm, when we have a summer storm where the waves reach the dunes, those kayaks would become incredibly destructive. Whipping around, it would pull up any rack we had, and they would be just an auger on the dunes. So our intent is to change our policy to a carry in and carry out. That storage overnight on the dunes, kayak storage, or on the beach, will not be permitted, period. Now, there is the exception for signers of the beach use agreement in their reserved area. They would be allowed to keep kayaks in that reserved area. But other than that, and also an allotment for Dinghy Point, but other than those 2 areas, there would be no overnight storage of kayaks on the beach. So the way we're suggesting that we approach this is that we would create a sticker that would be given to the beach signatories, so they would attach those stickers to their kayaks and to their watercraft. And those watercraft with the stickers would be kept within their 25 feet and would be permitted to stay there overnight. We're also suggesting that on Dinghy Point, that a sticker be provided for each of the moorings out in the bay. That way, if an individual does not have a reserved area, restricted area in which to keep their dinghy or their kayak to access their boat, they would be able to leave it at Dinghy Point with this sticker. Indeed, that was the whole concept for Dinghy Point, how that area started and that's why it's called Dinghy Point, not Kayak Point. How it all started way before my time. The CSOs then would be responsible for, in the morning, monitoring the beach. If they find a kayak that, or any kind of watercraft, paddleboard, surfboard, remaining on the beach in the early morning without a sticker, it would be tagged. And after 48 hours, if that is not removed, then it would be removed by a contracted towing service. So that's one of the workable elements of this. One of the important elements to make it workable was to identify a group who would be willing, under contract, to remove the kayaks. We have identified such a group, and they would come in on call early in the morning and remove any kayaks that were identified by the CSOs as going against the ordinance. The fee for that would be $85 plus 10 days, $10 a day for storage, maximum 10 days. So the maximum fee someone would pay to retrieve their kayak would be $185. But hopefully this will be sufficient to dissuade folks from leaving the kayaks on the beach. Obviously, this is something we want to be able to get public input for before we go to the Board of Selectmen. And I guess I'll just leave that statement now just for questions among us and what our next steps might be to include the public in these discussions.
Actually, I have just a point of clarification. This includes paddle boards as well.
It does, yeah.
Watercraft, anything.
Anything. As a matter of fact, even large inflatables,
Especially large inflatables.
especially large inflatables,
The
perhaps.
handsome ones.
Especially if they happen to be flamingos.
Yeah, yeah. But,
And John, if there is a kayak in the 25-foot reserved area that doesn't have the marking, what would happen?
it would be tagged. Again, there's 48 hours. If that kayak remained there for 48 hours without a sticker, it would be removed.
So the property owner really has a responsibility to make sure that even though it's on his property per se.
We are asking, and I can see where that could be a concern. I'm hoping that folks will understand that this is important, one, to preserve, as our tides get higher, that beach is getting shorter and shorter over on the West Ark. And we are staking the dunes. We need to do that to preserve the dune growth. When you put the kayaks in front of that, it's really cramping the style. And folks, and you can understand this, they're in the back, they're storing their kayaks there. They may use them once a week, they may use them once a month, but they're just being stored there. There was 191 kayaks and paddle boards when I took a survey at the end of August. And those were the ones, I wasn't even counting the ones that were further down the beach on the East Ark or West Ark. So,
No, I do like the idea of one rule. Everybody, there's no exceptions. If you're here, you're tagged. If you're there, you're not tagged. If you're a property owner, it's one thing. If you're not, let's keep it simple.
yeah, my concern is if we say, oh gee, it's in 25 feet, then we're back to where we were before, where the CSO's really not knowing
Right.
who's 25, who's the reserved area, and someone would just drag their kayak and leave it there saying,
That's
hey,
what I
it
was
won't
really
be.
getting at.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
I can
yeah.
see for sure.
Yeah, but we'll really need their assistance on this, and we'll help them in getting as many stickers as they need. If they rent their property, they can have a stack of stickers to provide to their renters to put on their watercraft. Our intent is to work as best we can, but to keep the beach clear overnight.
So how would that part of it, the sticker part of it, work? Like a parking decal, or we would just send them out annually to the owners, send them each 4, and if they
Need more,
want
request
more,
it,
they
yeah.
could request
And
it.
I think more, like a parking decal, or maybe more appropriately, one of the boat license that's more waterproof.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Exactly.
would they have to apply, or we're just going to send them out? What was the thought, or we didn't get that far?
We didn't get that far.
Okay.
But I would think we would probably send out some to each, but let's see how that works. Want to be sure that they have them, that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know you and I had a quick discussion on this. Was there a thought on mechanically, administratively, how this would happen? Would we have to get an ordinance passed to do this? Can we do it without an ordinance?
Again, that is TBD, but I believe that the selectmen have, under the BSU, the authority to set rules for management of the beach.
Right.
If we, as our advisory committee, would suggest that to the board, and if the board were willing to move forward with it, and I'm sure, again, they're going to want public input, and be sure we vetted this, and let's talk about that in a moment, then I believe they would have the authority to do that. But again, that's TBD. In terms of public input, we were just talking, Carol and Pam and I, before the meeting, do you think it'd be possible to have a December special meeting just on this topic? Where people can Zoom in or could come here and do it? Because our concern, here's our concern.
Yeah.
If we don't, we need to have public, I think, a public.
Yeah, we should,
meeting.
absolutely.
If we do that in January, it wouldn't be to February that we can bring it to the board, and we're getting down, there's a real educational piece that we need to be sure to do. This is a major change for folks, and we're taking away a privilege that they had. A privilege may be the wrong say it, but certainly something that was being done. And we need to get emails out. We need to get mail letters out to all the residents, to all the summer rental agencies, to the kayak rental agencies. They need to be aware of this as well. They're going to, because they provide kayaks to people in the back or on the front, and those are going to have to be, they're going to have to know where to find their kayaks if they leave them on the beach. So it's a matter of, we have to get signs put together. This is going to have to be well signed.
It's going to have to be part of the signage, obviously.
Well, I think they need to be, I would suggest they're separate signs. I know, sorry. but-
Initially, that's probably what's going to
And
happen.
hopefully, that's
No, but
first.
if we're spending the money on a sign that's going to last 10 years, and we have a rule that says
You're absolutely
no
right.
overnight storage of boats
You're
without
absolutely
decal or whatever it is,
There
we
you go.
should,
No, yeah, it should be there, you're right. But in addition, I'd like to have, I'd
First year,
suggest,
you might need to.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
too.
Oh, absolutely, along,
at each entrance and then along the front where the kayaks were. So
along the
we got
twine.
to make it clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, $185 is no sneezing. If somebody leaves a kayak and they're going to have to go get it, and it's, we got to be sure that people are educated. I want to start before February.
yeah, I think the challenge on the daily hit is that people won't have noticed that they've lost anything. It's not like your car got taken and you can't drive it tomorrow, or there's a boot on it.
That's why the signs and the communications are so critically
Right,
important.
no, I understand.
And if, yeah. But, so, yeah,
Sure, go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, Kate Auerberg, I'm also a member of this subcommittee. Thank you very much. Just a quick question, in terms of, the major part of this actually takes place, thank you to the Conservation Trust and the donor who made those racks and put them in place.
right.
And I know for a very good reason that what you were trying to achieve. Now we've created sort of something we didn't expect to happen. Just by taking away, as I understand it, you're saying that the Conservation Trust presumably is going to change its policy too and choose not to put those racks out next year. and make their property available.
Actually,
then-
there are racks. The Conservation Trust was allowing us to put them there.
Right, but I mean,
there's-
they have to be put back out. They're not left there all winter. So if next summer, the Conservation Trust chooses
They will
not to
not.
put them back out,
No, it's we that put them out. We're not going to put them out next
Right.
summer.
so,
Your point is well taken, and that is they are a
sorry.
property owner in the agreement.
Right.
And we're going to have to request that they not
Correct.
give permission to,
right. But that's a big, if those are gone, I think that's a big part of the education process, that people will not find these
safe place to put
things
their-
that they can then tie their kayaks up to and et cetera, so.
But it
just
didn't
it's
stop
a-
them before. I
Yeah, there
mean,
were a lot more
there
than
were-
that.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were a lot more, but, and I think now more and more people, because they've gotten used to this, may in fact, this is a good part of the education that we need to
Right.
do. I agree that so many people have gotten used to the idea of, oh, I can bring my kayak and just leave it there for however long I'm here at the beach.
Right.
And this, as you said, I too did a personal survey and was appalled by the number that I found of watercraft, which then led to other things being stored under the watercraft, et cetera. So it's definitely time, and I think this is something that the process is important. And I think it'll be the first year only where we really need to hit the education process, and then, the word gets out there.
Right.
And thank God, we're putting in part an enforcement component of this,
It
that
has to
will
have
be
teeth.
taken away.
It has to have teeth. or it
Right,
won't
and
work.
thank God, since we identified the problem in the past of people throwing kayaks up into the dune grass, we've also tried to ameliorate that by all the stake and twining that we've been doing for the
Yeah,
last
which is
3 or 4
which is
years,
been
which I think
marvelous.
hopefully will also help get the message across is, this dune grass is sacred, important, do not put anything in it, including your kayak that you can't now hook up to, whatever, so.
Right. Thanks.
So it would seem to me before we would have this meeting, we would have a nice little report that was easy to understand, and we could educate people ahead of time so that if they're concerned, they could attend the meeting,
Exactly.
whether the meeting's in
Exactly.
December or January.
Exactly.
So we would need to do that first, I would think. Not,
Exactly.
not written up minutes, but just like the proposal,
Yeah.
the change,
Yeah, yeah.
what it means for you, or...
How do we get them, well, we can email, how do we get
We would
that
do a
to
constant
everyone?
contact. We would do,
Okay.
Fred would send out a...
So you've got that covers most of the beach
Yeah.
folks and,
Right, and then we would also send it out to the beach committee list that the town has. So the town gives a notice of a public meeting. They have their separate listserv.
should be for the whole town though, right? I mean, we
Well,
should tell
we could-
everyone.
Yeah, that's true. We could do the whole town.
I think, yeah, let's see if we can
Yeah,
do that. Yeah.
right, because there are a lot of off-beach people who...
Yeah,
Yeah.
And maybe
So we
we-
would have to, attach the document with the agenda, the one-item agenda
Right.
for that workshop
right,
meeting.
right. And maybe put a page on the website, a link to it, they'll figure out, we'll let them handle that piece, but right.
But I think if we don't do it, it won't happen.
No, we will do it. It'll be written.
It has to
by-
be- yeah.
It'll be written by the end of the week, and it would go out if we can agree on a date in December.
So I'm not adverse to seeing if there's a time in December. The problem, of course, is a space and
Right.
a room that's available.
We normally, our third Monday is our time, right?
What's that, Christmas Eve?
That's probably going to be the week between, oh, is that just 19th?
Isn't that the third one, I think?
It's Hanukkah, first day of Hanukkah.
Well, that's not bad. No, December 19th. No,
For
3
me.
would be 21. No, I think it's got to be 11. That's the second, isn't it? Oh, that's the third.
December 19th is Monday.
Third
That's third
Monday,
Monday, yeah.
19th, it works for me.
Does it work?
Yeah, it works for you, Dave. Thanks, I guess.
We're on.
Me too.
I'll have to be remote for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I probably will be in row too. I don't think I'm in town. What's that? Yes, if I'm out of town for
Yes.
personal, family reasons, I can ask the
Yes.
chairman.
Yes, yes, we should.
Thanks for being concerned. And my bigger concern is Hanukkah, kind of excluding It would be like planning it on Christmas night. Would we do that? I don't think we would.
You can do it.
I can do it, first night of Hanukkah? Nobody's
It's
going
not,
to?
nobody goes to synagogue.
No, I know that.
There's not it's not a religious holiday. It's
And there's more than just the one day, too.
it's 8 days in a row. so
Right,
it
it's the
wipes
first.
out half of December.
Okay. Okay, how do other people feel about that date?
It's okay by me.
I'll have to be remote, but. that's-
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I will be remote.
Fine.
Are you
Yeah, I'm here.
in town?
Yeah.
Okay, we can't ask Paul since, did Paul Hayes ever jump in?
Nobody named Paul is here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, John, the drill would be, we're on the calendar already for a meeting that
Right.
month, so we don't have to do anything there. But we have to send an agenda and ask for a Zoom link
Right.
and attach to the agenda the explainer.
Right, right.
So,
And I'll get that and send it to the committee to
so that would be,
look at.
if we get it out by the beginning of next week, that would be
Right.
fine. That would be a couple weeks.
Right. Good,
That'd be great, thanks for all your help on this.
good.
You need help. You need help?
Yeah, I'll see. I'll take a cut at it and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that topic?
Nope.
Anyone on, any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item, I guess we don't even really need a report. We had made a request to the town that if there was a nominee for
Yes.
our beach vacancy on the committee, that that the beach committee make a recommendation on that applicant, and I saw from the minutes, they said yes.
Yes.
It was a 3-0. So I don't think anybody's come to our attention that we know of.
We need to get a name.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we function fine by ourselves.
Do we need a replacement?
Yeah, I do. I
But
think
we do,
function-
by the,
Well, there would be, if the position sits empty, it would be in the election in June. It would be, to fill an unexpired term. I forget what the terms are, but if we found somebody before then, we could fill it before then. I've asked a couple people, but I have not had any luck.
Me either.
One person said, if you're really desperate. And I didn't want to appear really desperate.
Right.
Okay, the next item was just data that we got from the town last time, all the data on parking revenues for parking stickers and parking tickets, and they had not figured out the collection rate, which they had then supplied, which was 80%. So of the parking tickets that were given out, it was an 80% pay rate so far.
That's lower than it was 2 or 3 years ago, right?
I saw like on the 5-year chart, there was a high of 90-something, and there was a low of 65.
yeah, I think the low was pandemic.
That's even lower,
Really-
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
it's a-
actually up, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up from the past 2 years, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're doing anything different or... Okay. The next item was just a follow-up on the walkway request. So I gave everybody a little map, and what we were sort of wondering about was was there a better location? I think, and someone had suggested Jeffrey's Way, but after the meeting, someone was thoughtful, I don't know, was a member of the public or
Beth Ramsey.
Beth Ramsey, a neighbor, former member of the committee, sent a note saying, oh, you can't do it there because that's where the vehicles go down, the trucks roll down there on Jeffrey's when there's
Water accident, water
when there's an emergency. That's the...
Emergency.
we're
Water
ta-
rescue, yeah.
So if we put one there, it would get trashed the first
Yeah.
time fire truck rolled over it or the...
Oh, plus it's not enough parking, like there's 4 handicap parking spaces near the existing one.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
You could never replicate that.
exactly, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the request, Kate was asking about it because she has missed a meeting or two. we had a request from someone back on Community House Road? I forget where. Skyline. For an additional accessible walkway at Broadway. Anyway, I measured, the map that I sent you is of the area, and right now it's 665 feet roughly from the Edgewood existing walkway to the Broadway entrance. I also measured all the way down to Bel Air, and it's from Bel Air to Broadway is 1,150 feet. One thought was, oh gee, do you move it from Edgewood a little farther one way so that the beach is better covered? So that was why I measured that other site. And we had not taken a position on what we wanted to do about the request, whether we wanted to actually, was the original request, no, the original request was Broadway, but Broadway, here, I'm forgetting our discussion, it just came back to the top of mind. I did have COVID in the past few weeks, so I'll blame that. The path at Broadway was very curved and narrow.
And long.
Yeah, they couldn't put it there.
And if we put the path in, it would not be ADA compliant because it's not wide enough. We didn't want to straighten out the path because that's very bad for the dunes and for the neighborhood. And theoretically, you could put a 3-foot wide one in. I did measure the wheelchair, the one that's at the tides, and that's about a 3-foot
That's
wide
3 foot.
width, wheel to wheel, just under 3. So we had thought maybe Jeffries was an option and that would solve the problem, but that doesn't seem to be possible.
We have not solved the problem.
We have not solved the problem. So I guess we don't have a solution if someone
Yep.
watching, or if you did write to the person.
Told them we're working on it, which is what we're doing.
Right.
But we don't have a solution.
Someone could propose a solution, that would be interesting, but
Yeah, I don't know where to go on
And we
it.
looked, I looked at all different kinds of mats to go on the beach, but to have ones that go and curve around, it's very difficult. You're going to have, if you have the straight kind of matting like that we know. Yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly.
Yeah, the
So which is a
gaps.
tripping.
Right, that's what,
Yeah.
So if you get ones that make a bend, only ones I found were ones that are the slatted ones, that they.
Right, right.
And that, that's only a specific bend. It doesn't fit necessarily with the bend of the dunes, so I would
Yeah,
say this is still in work in progress.
yeah, I did see, you could never do it. I did see a neighbor down towards Jeffries, an elderly woman who had trouble navigating the sand, even from her house down. And they put in a 2-foot wide, I would say, wooden with, maybe it's rope and maybe little pieces of plastic in between it. And hers is very curved, and it did work fine.
Did it?
But it's very narrow. It's just a one-person walking. It's fine for in front of her house. But for crowds and all the rigs and everything people drag onto the beach, it wouldn't hold up, I don't think, or...
That's what we have at our house too, but that's a one-person walk.
Yeah, it's a one-person walking thing. Yeah. Okay. That moves us on to new business. I don't know if there is any. Is there any new business?
I have a concept I'd like to discuss, and I've done this, and it stems from when Stu Flavin had his heart attack on the beach in front of our house. And when people, emergency people or anybody has to identify a beachfront property from the beach, it's very difficult. Our houses don't look the same from the beach as they do from the road. And, we're a checkerboard beach, so it's difficult to determine. So the thought that came up was to put our street numbers on the beach side of the house also. And I've already done it. I thought it was a very practical, simple idea. It would help like when we call, this is, I'm 443 Kings Highway, and the CSOs can go out and see the numbers from the beach and know where they are, or even if this is voluntary as far as I'm concerned. And even if not everybody does it, the CSOs and police would still have a relatively good idea of where the houses are. We used to be, 101, 103, 105, 107, 109,
Yeah.
and now that's gone. So anything I think we can do that would help identify beachfront houses would help, so.
This is slightly off topic, but it occurs to me with the stickers for the kayaks,
Right.
there should be a spot on it for the house number. So you would write 443 on it.
There you go.
So that would also help connect the kayak to a location,
I like that.
which would help them, if they had on their...
There you go.
Right,
You
right.
do like a parking sticker, like you
Right.
do your driver's license, you do the house number.
Yeah, the parking stickers have that space
Yeah,
for,
you can do
Really.
oh, they write your license in, they
Yeah.
write your plate in.
Plate in, yeah.
But if they wrote the house number,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Anyway,
That
that was the
would-
thought.
That's a good idea.
So Carol, I haven't been down the last couple of days. I haven't seen your sign, but is it just on a post?
No, put it on the house, I did it on 443, right under the light, so if.
So it's on the house?
It's on the house, and so if there's somebody out there in trouble at night, we can shine the light on so the police can, I did 6-inch numbers, I think.
yeah, because most of the houses are, like where you are a good distance from.
Yeah.
We're
it would
good,
be
yeah,
hard to
and
read
some,
it from the
and by the
Yeah.
way, you may not be able to see it all, but anything I think would help in identification of the problem.
Yeah.
Like where our son's house is, that's very close to the
Right.
beach, and so I think that would be very easy to identify. We've got, right now, thanks to the, tides, we have a lot of dune grass in front, so it wouldn't be as easy to see, but anyway, it's a concept, and,
The chief was incredibly supportive. He said this would make his
Yeah.
life so much
Even
easier.
just had reference points,
yes,
Yeah, I-
yes,
It wasn't
exactly.
everybody.
Yeah, no,
Every- Yeah, exactly,
Most
but
of them, yeah.
we
Yeah.
get people to just comply, it's a safety issue, it's a courtesy to the, you want someone to come to enforce your beach use agreement, they come by beach, they're gonna need to see where you are.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Even when you have guests.
Because we often say that side for the ocean front is the front of the house.
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly,
So
Exactly.
why wouldn't you have the sign up?
exactly.
Yeah. And we've had guests go off who've never been here before, go down, walk on the beach.
Never saw him again.
Yeah, you can't,
they don't know where
get
the
back to the
path
right
is.
house.
Yeah,
Right.
Where the
Yeah.
grave
And that
is.
happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
many-
it happens a lot. It's
Yeah.
not just, because it looks so different, you just get,
Right, you don't
anyway.
look where you came from.
And I don't know if we want to support this as a board, but I don't know if we want to advertise it, I don't know how we want to go forward. I know the chief, when we talked with him about it, was, as you said, very much in favor of it.
I would think as opposed to a new rule,
Right.
sending a letter from the beach committee and the chief of police, a physical letter mailed, we know where all the addresses are,
Right.
and as a sort of explaining the
Benefit.
the concept and asking people to
It's a
participate.
courtesy, just
Yeah.
support your
It's a
police.
safety thing, yeah.
It's a
It
safety
really is
thing,
for
yeah.
your-
That's what I think.
Right, yeah.
You willing to write that?
I will do,
Okay.
right that.
And I'm sure the chief would, I think if it came from both us and
Yeah,
And the chief.
Obviously,
PAC
we
and
pass
chief.
it by him, but I'm sure,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure he'll support it.
Yeah,
He was very supportive.
yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Everyone's supportive, we didn't take a
Yeah,
vote on
why-
that,
Why
but,
not include the fire chief as well?
There you go.
oh, sure,
You know,
that's a good
I mean,
idea.
just because I think the emergency angle is,
Right.
hard to argue against,
Ken,
especially
Good
this
point.
Stu Flavin situation. you know.
Yeah,
If you're in trouble on the beach,
right,
it'd be nice to let them know where you are.
Exactly.
would.
yeah. I've known people who have, like, on the cell phone, wanting to call the police about some dogs,
Seals.
and,
Seals.
and they say, where am I? Like, I'm like, well, there's a non-emergency number is who you should call, I have that, but I don't know what house number we're in front of, how would I know that? And that's people don't even know the street names.
Right, right.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Thanks for that suggestion. The next thing was we had talked about moving our January meeting to the 23rd off of Martin Luther King Day, which is the 16th. But I understand that doesn't really work for a few people. I do know that I am traveling on the 16th, and I will be coming back to New York. I could join by phone, but I can't get here. So what's the sense of the board? If we meet in December, do we need to meet in January? It's another,
Well, is December going to be solely focused on kayaks, or do you need to have a full?
yeah, I mean, it's
No,
only
I think it's-
2.5 weeks from now,
Yeah,
so.
okay, so, yeah, so that's just days, yeah.
But I don't know if we need it, Jen, we don't, we normally.
It depends, like if we have signage,
The signage thing.
if we have,
Yeah.
I would love for by January
What
to
about
have a
we follow
mock-up
that?
sort of what we want to
Things in the
cover.
kayak
Yeah.
from the meeting. Do we have to have a meeting about that?
So, and we didn't get a confirmation from the town
Be from the kayak meeting.
that date was available. The zoning board of adjustments uses this room on the 4th, but they don't meet that often. So it might be available, it might not be available.
So what was the issue with the 23rd, the availability of the room or the?
No, we had just suggested moving to the 23rd if it was available, but two guys over here are going to be unavailable.
Yeah. But what if we just move it a week to the 30th? Make that work?
That's a good idea.
Do we have an issue with the room?
There's always an issue with the room. You guys know who meets on the, oh no, there's 5.
There's four, that's the, what, 1, 2?
That should be, that's the 5th Monday, so it should be open.
Very rarely they have anything scheduled on the 5th Monday.
So maybe we meet on the 30th and skip February.
That's a good idea.
Good for me.
That's a good idea.
Yep, that works.
Okay, I'll try that out. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let Janita know.
Yeah. Thank you. It's nice to have you guys behind the curtain over there
Right.
to give us these quick answers. Okay, that sounds good.
One other thought that Carol brought up, if we have the meeting for the kayaks on December, then we're going to want to get together just to discuss our next step, if we're going to make a presentation of the board or what we're going to do. But we could do that by email, I imagine,
Sure.
because, don't you think?
If you have a specific proposal that's on paper in December, that's easy to see, then we could,
After the meeting?
Yeah.
Yes,
we can take a vote after the workshop.
right,
Yeah.
We can discuss it and we can take a vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
good.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we can adjourn.
So moved?
John is moving to,
Second motion?
all in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thanks. Thanks, David.
I think we can do a
No,
little
I didn't ask.
more specific on
They
the
would've
numbers
told us.
before the letter goes out.